This review covers the 2022 Corvette Stingray Z51 Coupe. It's a 125 scale kit from Revell, number 14556. Now it's a skill level 4 kit for the intermediate to advanced builder and was released about mid-year in 2024. Since the release of the mid-engine Corvette, we've all been waiting for these model kits, and this new Z51 variant is worth the wait. The level of detail is stunning and accurate, and this kit is extremely detailed at an affordable price, but that does come with a trade-off. You'll have to supply some of the detailing by hand yourself. Revell's new kits are state-of-the-art, and they're affordable as well. But if you plan on building this model, you'll want to follow along for some important information and identify the specific issues with some of the parts fit, and how to detail paint the interior, the headlights, taillights, and window surrounds that are fully required for a fully appointed model. Additionally, there are certain small parts that need some chrome paint, which are typically plated, but not in this kit. Now this kit, most of it is exceptional, but like any kit, there are a few spots where you may not expect to have an issue, but we'll call those out and you can address them ahead of time to preserve your contest-ready build. Here's the box art for this new kit, and it's shown here in what appears to be what's called rapid blue. Molded in 142 pieces, here are the contents of the kit. As you can see, the window glass is extremely thin and clear. It's nice, and some nice vinyl, low profile tires here, the exceptional tread pattern for the Corvette, and as well as, of course, a whole lot of parts molded in white styrene plastic. Here are the decals for the kit. As you can see, it is an extensive array of decaling. You're going to have decals to cover just about every facet of the interior, some engine decals, and those great big stripes, both white and black, that will fit any of the OEM colors for the car. Also, a plethora of license plates there for you to choose from. One caution, the decals are fairly thin. They will break easily, and they're slightly transparent. You might have trouble if you use a dark color and the white stripes disguising some of that because they're not that thick. Because of their thin nature, you will want to take and if you're going to use or find you need some setting solution, use it on a piece or one of the decals that you're not going to use for the build to make sure that it's not too hot and causes an issue of wrinkling, etc. First thing to do is notice that the instructions are really good. They have really upped their game. They're in light pastels and colored coding. And one of the great things about Revell's new kits is they still tell you the part names of the parts. And they identify them by tree, and they identify the tree itself so that you can easily find the parts. And the first thing you want to do is, after you've studied this set of instructions, go through and look for parts that are designated for specific colors. And what I do is copy each page and then of the sprue trees, and then designate which ones, which colors each piece is. That way you can group them and paint them all together later on. And speaking of color, you see a little chart here for some of the Corvette colors. I chose to go with the Amplify Orange, and for that I used the Tamiya TS12 orange paint. Now, a little discussion about that. You see the two shades here, actually three, on each of these color choices. It depends on what light you see these, any car or any of these kits in to determine the shade of it. It will change depending on whether it's a darker lighting or a brighter lighting. So there's a lot of discussion about exact colors really depends mostly on the lighting that's on the vehicle. That even goes with what we call scale color, which has its issues too. Even moisture in the air will determine scale color. So don't be too critical about anybody's color choice, because it depends very much on the ambient conditions on how that color will look. Right off the get-go, I've deviated from the kit's instructions. And for me, that's because if you don't get a good paint job on the body, you have to start over with it, which means a delay. So the first thing I do is get the body just right for paint, etc., and let it dry thoroughly while I'm building the rest of the kit. Now you see here some green tint there on the roof and in some of the body panels. That's tape holding some pieces together. First, go ahead and smooth your body up for any parting lines. Every body has parting lines. You'll have to find them, however insignificant they might appear, and clean them up. And those, of course, are on the quarter panel ridges and up over the top of the drip edge, etc. Now, I have also glued the rear roof panel into place so that I could precisely fit the removable panel into position and make sure that the hatch there over the engine cover will operate. And I grouped these like parts because they will all get a light coat of primer, sanding, and then after rinsing and drying, we'll get some Amplify Orange, otherwise known as Tamiya TS12 paint on it to get it drying and into a condition where we can finish the rest of the painting. There is also some intricate detail painting for this body kit. Normally a kit, you just turn it over and paint the roof flat black on the window posts, but on this one you get to paint little trim pieces up there on the top of the roof, on the non-removable panel. There are 3 shades of black on the body, both gloss black for appointment pieces, and like in the trunk, it's satin black and flat black towards the rear. Now you see some progression here. Like I said, we want to get the body finished with those details. So the decals have been applied, including the emblems for the flags in the front and the back, the Stingray emblem there, along with those nice black stripes. But of course, we've smoothed that out after a couple of light coats of the orange before the decals. And then once those are applied and the decals are thoroughly dried, after a couple of days, I gave it a couple of coats of 2-part urethane automotive gloss finish. Now it's time to work on that engine, and these are sorted into, on the left, mostly aluminum parts, and on the right, either mixed aluminum or different colored pieces. In this view, you see that the engine is mostly complete. It has been detailed along with some black wash on some of the fins there on the transmission, etc. And the top of the engine intake there, that's mocked up. It comes back off for further construction. But as you can see, there's a lot of detail in this motor. It looks great, and it's a model by itself. Now, I'm going to mention too that you see the red circle there. That's a left side engine mount, and it is in a little bracket. Also, these plug wires and boots are molded into this kit, which is okay because they're underneath from the top view. You can't really see them anyway. But I painted those wires blue and the boots black. And back to that mounted unit on the left there, there are 3 tiny little holes or little detents in the engine block where the bracket for that unit is attached to the block. Now notice that I painted the engine topper there at the induction area and the valve covers a translucent red over silver metallic to give it a kind of look that it appears to be on the real vehicle. The transaxle shafts there, the half shafts on each side of the engine, they just fit into position, but they get added to wheels, etc. later on. So you have to get them, perpendicular to the flat plane where they are mounted. So make sure that you remove any parting line flash or anything on the area where it glues to the block to make sure that it sticks straight out, because you're going to just let this set and dry until it's time to mate it up to the adjacent parts. Group painting is a time saver. When you can do that, go ahead and do it. These parts are aluminum, so you can touch them up easily with an aluminum Sharpie after you trim them off, even sanding off parting lines, etc., or at least mostly aluminum. So go ahead and paint those that way and let them dry. Here's some more of that detail painting that is becoming part of the norm for new kits. The wheel wells are separate, and they are painted satin black. Now the body panel there, the lower body panel, is painted a flat black along with an aluminum section there near the front end where the front suspension is located, and forward ahead of that is a satin black panel. So you'll need to mask those off and carefully spray those separate colors, and then go ahead and start adding the suspension pieces like the control arms there. And you see those shock absorbers there, of course aluminum with a flat black spring section, and those will be attached to the outside of the fender wells. Now another highlight of this kit, articulating front wheels with a connecting tie rod. As you can see, the brakes, calipers, and the rotors are painted steel colored along with black and dark red Brembo brake calipers. Now the white pieces there in the middle are the retainers, and you can see one that's protruding from the upper suspension part there. The tie rods go together on that upper suspension, and they get threaded through the wheel wells onto these spindles that they're currently attached to. So as you can see, these are just pre-demonstration so that you know how those segments go together. The wheel well construction is a bit tricky. The top part of the shock there goes into, that's the stubby side, where the spring is. You're going to glue that into the wheel well at that top spot there inside the wheel well, it's white spot. Oh, that's because I scraped the paint off, which you need to do if you want a good bond. I would use some slow setting glue for this to make sure that that gets put in the right position. So then the other part of the shock gets glued to the center of the upper control arm there, and then there's two pegs on the top of it, and those go into the two holes inside the wheel well. So make sure that they're all in position, flush and flat, and that the control arms are fairly perpendicular, or I should say on the same plane as the lower frame. They're going to want to track about the same position. So you see here, all the wheel wells have been attached to the lower frame, and use some strong glue for these. You don't want them coming apart. Yeah, probably some super glue. Now note the numbers on them. Although the wheel wells kind of look the same at a first glance, they all fit differently on different sides. So I numbered them to make sure that when I was going to put them in position, I wasn't looking around for where they actually went. So now we'll work on the actuating part of the front suspension, and we're going to uncouple the tie rod bar there from the spindles, the knuckles, and we're going to, you also notice, we've got an expansion joint there with a red or a flat black boot on it. Now the brake calipers on this part of the vehicle are in the front, so you're going to orient those later in the front. And turn this around basically, and note the ejector pin marks there, but those are hidden from view so you won't see them, and that comes up a few times in the kit. They did a good job for the most part, except for one exception, and they're hidden from view anyway. Nonetheless, we're going to, like I said, we're going to glue the knuckle here to the control arm, the lower control arm at the back of the engine, or the floor plate, and then we're going to at the same time we're going to then put this in position and use some slow setting glue so that it's just like this. The tie rod there is at the back, and the calipers are in the front, and turn those in the orientation that way. And then we're going to take from this, as you see here in this diagram, we're going to lower the wheel wells, the shocks, and the upper control arms down, and at the same time we're going to glue the lower post of the shock and the top post of the spindle there into position, and it will lock the tie rod into position just sitting there so that it moves freely. Don't glue those parts where they go onto the knuckles, and they will then articulate. That's your front end articulating suspension. Now we're going to stage up these parts to assemble them to the floor plate, and the fender wells and the steering knuckles are assembled the same way as the fronts in the back here, but without the tie bar, of course, because this is your the rear end. Now the radiators are aluminum with some black wash in the radiator grooves. You see the exhaust pieces there. The muffler is got 3 different colors attached to it, and even the exhaust tubes those are 3 tones of silvers and grays. So pay attention to the paint detail in the instructions, which, by the way, are fully shown at the back of the review here at the end. So we're going to mount that engine into position on those 2 pegs that you see there in the middle of the floor plate. I can share a little tip with you here. Whenever you're concerned about hood closure, in this case the engine cover, which is glass, take a little bit off the engine mounts or other features, the bottom of a carb if necessary, to make sure you get good clearance and hood closure. In this case, I took a bit off of the bosses there that you see circled in red, and I also took about 20 millimeters off of the bottom bosses on the engine that will mount into those receivers. So I got about 40 thousandths more clearance to make sure that the engine cover closes properly. So here you see the engine mounted into position. Now make sure that you get that firmly and flushly mounted so that it's not tipped one way or the other. And then you can connect those axles into the spindles and put this whole front end together. It goes together very easily at this point. The wheel wells and the engine mounted into position. Now it's time to add the radiators and the exhaust, and that's where things get difficult. The exhaust header is coming out of the engine, and the mufflers fit almost precisely and positively into place where they go. On the engine, they angle up and sit there nicely, and they're equalized on each side. The muffler fits right into a groove on the floor plate. So what you have, though, when you mount those exhaust ducts on the ends of the header pipes and into the muffler, it's too tight. They don't really fit well. I had to take a little bit off of the ends where they meet the muffler, and at the sidewalls where the fender wells were, I had to take a little bit off of those pods, although you can't see it because they're up against it, to make sure that it fit and didn't come off of the ends of the header tubes. As I mentioned earlier, the wheel wells fit precisely into positions that are marked with ridges on the frame, and they can't go in the wrong place. However, when I went to put the air cleaner into position, which is tied to the center of a port, or I should say a post on the transmission area, and tried to fit them between the fender wells, as you see indicated here with the red arrow and circle, it was pushing so hard to try and get it installed that I thought it was going to break one of the wheel wells off. So, by the way, always test fit before you glue parts together, and that was saved me on this one too. I had to kind of sand those ends off, the plates there, paper thin, so that I had enough room to put that into position between the wheel wells. As I mentioned, the radiators were highlighted with some light black wash there in the radiator section, and of course they fit nicely into some ridges right there at the front end, just ahead of the wheel wells. With the engine complete, I turn my attention to the interior, and we've already painted the console and the seats, but there's some detailing that goes on there too. You can see the multicolors there on the console, and of course the interior pan was painted flat black, and it also has a little satin black in the back and a decal emblem there. There's a little chrome detailing to appointments there on the interior console too in the back. Now you see the seats have an interesting pattern. They have body color accents on the seats as well. There's also some decals that go on the headrests, and a big speaker decal that goes into the back. And it's pretty intricate, but with careful detail painting and with a hand brush, you can manipulate those details, and you can always touch it up with the black paint, or the orange if you need to get a nice looking rendition of the actual Z51 seats. We'll use the parts for the dashboard and the cowl area there with the wipers next, and they're painted flat black. Later on we'll give them a coat of satin black for their shine. Another bonus in this kit is the fact that you can install it either right hand or left hand drive. You notice the foreign plates there, the European style plates, and that means that for the US on a left hand drive you'll have to drill that hole out on the left side you see here with a pin vise or a hobby knife to install the wiper blade there. There's also a parting line here. You see the arrows pointing to it on the dashboard that needs to be cleaned up. Well, the dashboard is a study in detailing. The oval-shaped steering wheel is pretty unique, but on the pad there you see emblems on each side for buttons and the one in the center for the what used to be the old horn section. But it also has orange segments in between the portions that are held, and I used one of the stripes in the kit. It's a red stripe, but it's pretty orangish to fill in those gaps, and then I painted the one right in the center on top. The pedals, of course, are black, but they've got chrome metal ridges on them. The dashboard itself is both body colored on the bottom and a satin in the center with chrome accents, along with a flat black on top and orange accents that are painted to detail where the trim comes in from the sides and just over the center on the top of the steering pod. So here you see the cowl that has windshield wipers on it. The door panels are pretty interesting. They are dual colored, both body colored sections, and of course the satin black. Use a chrome pin on the handles, and of course you've got some nice decals to add there as well. Some of the orange section can be masked off. The rest is basically hand painted. And now you can simply add the pieces into place. The door panels are pretty neat. They glue on ridges on the outside, so there's no oozing of glue into the interior compartment. So go ahead and put this all together, and the cowl actually fits onto the front of the dashboard on a light ridge that's there, and that gets glued into place with some super glue. Here's the window glass. I won't be using the side windows. You see those in the upper right. But the glass is amazingly clear and thin, but there's just one little problem with it. They all have surrounds on them. That's right. What I did was, because they're so finely engraved, use a ultrafine point Sharpie to outline the basic areas right around the windows, and then I painted out the rest towards the edges. That's one downfall of the kit here. I think that those should have been pre-painted, pre-decorated, and charged another $1 for the kit. The headlight units, you have to paint this by hand. I started out with the orange, the amber signal light there, and then I painted the rest. So I Then went outside, used a silver Sharpie to recreate those spears. Now, all of these parts will fit perfectly, even the headlight lenses. They just glued into place with some white glue for those headlight lenses. They fit perfectly, but you have to be careful because they'll fall in if you don't get them on there just right. The grille, of course, is satin black. The spears in back around the induction ports there are gloss black, and those all get glued into position, and they fit very nicely. Once you have those headlights situated just right, go ahead and after they've been tacked in with a little clear glue, go ahead and put a piece of tape on them to keep them in position while the glue sets. Also, you see the louver there at the bottom. That's the internal portion of that outside scoop. Those get glued into position. You see the one that's glued in there at the just above that end to the body. The other one goes on the other side where there's that hole. And that's your internal scoop area. And it is body colored painted on the outside of it. Now here we've got some internal pieces. And that includes the back hatch, which has been painted satin black. And I went around the back edge there, and I cleaned off about 30 thousandths of that to make sure that the hatch would open and close properly. It didn't seem to have a problem, but I didn't want to take the chance after it was fitted in. Also, clean up those hinges, make sure there's no rough edges on the outside to bind it up. You will also see, well, you won't see here, but on the bottom of this, there's about 10 very light ejector pin marks. If I was a judge at a contest, I would lift this hatch up and see if you had fixed them. So you might want to do that if you're going for a contest winner. We've got the visor section that's the top console there inside, and there's a position piece, that's the window frame for the backlight that goes behind the seats. So for the backlight frame, you're going to find an issue. You see the yellow circle there and the white circle. They're supposed to be mating boss, ridge, and receiver there, but there's no receiver on the driver's side. There is one. The yellow arrow points to both the tab and the receiver recess on the passenger side. So go ahead and just trim off the one on the driver's side so that it doesn't sit lopsided. I think they forgot that recess in the white circle. Next, we'll add the visors to the header over the windshield area, and it doesn't have a real positive location. I simply moved it to this position where you can see it's right about in the middle of the unit. It also is where you'll add the rear view mirror. Now it's time to put the interior into the body. Unlike many kits where the glass goes in first, that goes in afterwards. So we're going to scrape the glue off the contact points and the holes up front there, which will lead to a couple of bosses right up front on that ledge, and then in the back there's a couple of tabs that lock in right on the body. And so glue those into position with some good super glue and make sure it stays tight. Now we've got a couple of those fascia inserts. They're satin black, and the license plate holder and tag, and we can glue those into position. They fit perfectly. Just put them in place, scrape a little of that paint off for a contact, and glue them there. Also, the license plate, just cut those out and apply them to the license plate holder with some white glue so that they won't warp. Now it's time to put in the glass pieces. There in the front and sides. The windshield, of course, it just snaps into place. It fit absolutely perfectly. And credit goes to the engineering here that kind of accounts for a thickness of paint for such precise control of those dimensions. Also, of course, the lenses go over the nacelles for the headlights. A little clear glue is used to just put those into place. And then those rear quarter windows there, they have a strip on them around the perimeter. Just like the other windows, I just used a notched Sharpie to put that around the outside of that window piece, and you can install those into place. Next, they're hard to see, but the mirror faces are above the mirrors there. They were painted gloss black, and the faces, of course, have to be chromed because they're white. So we're going to add those to the mirrors, spot mirrors, and then glue them into place on the body ledge. Also, we're going to add that front air dam and place the removable top into position. Now we can work with the wheel assemblies. You notice on the top there, the tires, one is wider than the other, and yes, those are the rears, as well as, of course, the wheel itself. Now, when you look at the tires, they're directional, of course, and to keep them straight, there's a recess of about 1/16 of an inch on the inside lip where the wheel goes in from the back. And then that keeps them in the correct orientation, and of course, there's front and backs. So go ahead and assemble those and put them into position. Scuff the tread a little bit so it looks like they've at least rolled out of the showroom, and you've got a really great looking tire and wheel assembly. Now I had painted the tires a metallic because they didn't really appear shiny, and I also used a little black wash to heighten the recesses in the spokes and around the wheel nuts. Now the wheel hubs are such a precise fit for the retainers in the wheels, you won't really need any glue. Just make sure that you press them snugly to the firm stop position, but give it a little backing so you don't break anything off. Much like the front headlight assemblies, the tail lights are just as intricate. Once again, there's an orange amber portion there on the outside edge, as well as a couple of silver pieces on top. They're kind of reflectors at the top edges. And then I painted, after those dried, flat black on the inside. And then on the outside, I used the body color to paint the accents. You see the orange color there. And then that's it. Just clean them up where they glue into place and use some clear or white glue to position them. And we'll show you the rest of that assembly here. So now we've gotten to the end, more or less, or at least the back of the car. And a little bit confusing are parts 43 and 44. One's called an insert or a molding, and one's called a panel. They're the same thing left and right. Anyway, they go in first ahead of the taillight lenses, and then those lenses that we decorated earlier will glue onto those. Of course, you've got those two faux grill inserts that go just below that. They're the satin black ones, and a license plate tag holder, as well as the tag, which will be applied just like the one in front. Now, the exhaust tips are supposed to be chrome, and I chromed the outside edges of that, and then I painted the insides of that black, flat black, for effect. Now we can add the rear bumper, etc., the whole fascia unit there to the back end, and it's a little touchy, but it fits perfectly in there. Don't use too much glue, just some super glue to catch the edges where it goes into place, and it snugs right in there. As you can see with the chin spoiler on front and the rear spoiler in back, a couple of dabs of glue on the tips there will keep that into position, and then you've got yourself a finished model. Well, a lot of builders are clamoring for new tool models, new cars that they've never seen before, and with the 71 Mustang and this new C8 Camaro pair, Revell has given you just that. Got exactly what you wanted. Now, they've had to step up their game for the competition, but even so, this is a supercar model that's only about half the price of the more premium kits, and with a little extra work, it looks just as good. You can win contests with this model. It's gorgeous. It fits together well, and there's just a few idiosyncrasies that you will have learned if you followed along in the review here. So if I were you, I'd buy one and put it on my shelf.
Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet.
This review is brought to you in part by Riders Hobby Shops, where the fun begins. Stop in to one of Ryder's 2 convenient Michigan locations where you'll find a full range of the latest hobby products, supplies, parts, tools, and paint. You'll find aisles and aisles of scale model kits, RC models, model rockets, Warhammer gaming, and railroading products. Stop in at Ryder's today and tell them Doug sent you.